In a small industrial town, a ruthless factory boss mocks a humble mechanic and challenges his teenage daughter to fix a complex engine no one has ever managed to repair, not even the experts. Laughed at, underestimated, and publicly humiliated, the girl quietly accepts the dare. What the boss doesn't know is, this girl isn't ordinary. Raised in grease and gears, mentored by her late father, and fueled by a deep emotional drive, she's about to do more than fix an engine. She's about to rebuild her entire family's broken pride. But as she opens up the engine, she finds something no one expected, a dangerous secret hidden inside that could destroy the company, expose a massive scam, and change lives forever. This story is not just about skill. It's about pain, power, and poetic justice. And once you start watching, you won't stop till the final twist breaks you. Before starting the story, make sure to subscribe the channel so that you don't miss any update in future. He leaned back in his office chair, eyes narrow with arrogance, watching the chaos unfold in the factory below. The engine, an enormous, outdated hunk of steel, had broken down again, and not a single engineer could figure out why. Grease-stained mechanics hovered around it, scratching their heads, whispering failed theories. Every minute the machine stayed dead was costing the company thousands, but the boss didn't care about the money. He cared about humiliation, about ego. Then, in front of everyone, he pointed at the scrawny teenage girl standing quietly beside the workshop door. "Hey," he said loud enough for all to hear. "Why don't you give it a try? I mean, your dad used to fix these before he died, right?" The room fell silent. Wrenches stopped clinking. Eyes shifted. She didn't flinch. She just looked at him with a calm that felt unnatural. And then, without a word, she walked forward. The boss smirked, leaning to one of his assistants. "Watch this. This is gonna be fun." But he didn't know what she carried in that silence. He didn't know that her father, the very mechanic he fired, used to teach her every night after hours. He didn't know that she memorized every bolt, every blueprint, and every weakness of this cursed machine. And he definitely didn't know that what she was about to find inside the engine would change everything. Not just the machine, not just the factory, but him. She didn't touch the engine at first. Instead, she walked around it slowly, observing, listening, like a surgeon studying a patient's heartbeat before making the first cut. The crowd of workers started whispering behind her back. One of them laughed under his breath. "She's stalling." Another murmured, "Maybe she doesn't even know what she's looking at." But she did. She knew exactly what she was looking at. This engine wasn't just a machine, it was a memory. A ghost of her father. He used to bring her blueprints like bedtime stories. Explain each part like it was a piece of art. "This part right here," he'd say, pointing at the injector. "It's a liar. Looks simple, but it's where most men get it wrong." She smiled faintly, remembering that line. Her fingers grazed the injector now, and instantly, she noticed it. The vibration was off. Just slightly, but enough. She leaned in, closed her eyes, and placed her hand on the side panel. She could feel it. The engine wasn't just broken. It was tampered with. But she said nothing. Instead, she reached for a nearby toolbox and calmly selected a wrench. The exact size, the exact shape. No hesitation. Up in the control room, the boss raised an eyebrow. "She's bluffing," he muttered. But for the first time, there was uncertainty in his voice. And down below, the room was quiet. No one moved. No one spoke. They all watched as the girl, barely 17, cracked open the first bolt, like she was peeling back the skin of a mystery no one else dared to touch. And somewhere deep inside that engine, something waited to be exposed. As she removed the second bolt, the smell hit her. Burnt oil, metallic fatigue. But beneath that, something off. Something intentional. She reached inside with her bare hands, felt along the grooves of the cylinder housing, and her fingertips brushed across something that didn't belong. A scratch? No, Not just a scratch, a mark. Like someone had tried to erase a signature from steel. She froze. That pattern, she remembered it. It was his. Her father used to engrave his initials in the machines he built, just small enough to go unnoticed. Just personal enough to leave a legacy. And this engine? This exact one? He'd worked on it for 6 straight months before the boss had fired him for underperformance. Her stomach tightened. This engine wasn't broken by time. It was sabotaged. After her father had left. And someone had tried to wipe his name off it. Like he'd never been there. Like he'd never mattered. She clenched the wrench tighter. Behind her, someone scoffed again, trying to break the tension. Maybe she should call her daddy from the grave, huh? She didn't even turn. But that comment sliced through the air like a knife. The mechanics around the engine looked away awkwardly. Even the boss, watching from his glass tower, shifted uncomfortably. He thought this was about a challenge. A joke. He didn't realize. This was war. And she wasn't here to win. She was here to bury a ghost. Her father didn't fail that engine. Someone else did. And she was about to find out who. She pulled the final panel loose with a soft metallic creak, and there it was. Buried deep inside the engine, beneath the fuel regulator, sat a piece that didn't match. Wrong shape. Wrong era. Wrong purpose. She reached in, unhooked it, and held it up to the light. A thin copper valve, rigged crudely into place, but not by mistake. This wasn't a replacement part. It was planted to fail. On purpose. Her jaw tightened. Her mind raced. This piece wasn't just foreign. It was dangerous. Designed to overheat. Meant to collapse the system from within. Like a slow-burning grenade waiting for the right pressure to detonate. And suddenly, everything clicked. Her father's last weeks at the factory. The unexplained shutdowns. The blame he took. The silent shame in his eyes the night he left, without a word. He hadn't failed the machine. The machine had been set up to fail. And they made him the scapegoat. Her breathing sharpened. Behind her, one of the senior engineers walked forward slowly, confusion on his face. Where did that part come from? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The look in her eyes said it all. She turned, walked toward the tool bench, and slammed the fake valve down hard. It clanged loud enough to echo across the factory. Everyone stopped. And up in his glass office, the boss froze. Because he recognized that part too. He'd ordered it. And now she knew. Didn't scream. Didn't make a dramatic speech. She just stood there, eyes locked on that glass office, holding the sabotaged valve in her grease-stained hand like a murder weapon. No words, just evidence. Down on the floor, the older workers shifted nervously. A few exchanged glances. One of them, an old friend of her father, quietly whispered, "I told them it wasn't his fault." The silence spread like wildfire. Everyone in that room suddenly started thinking back to the breakdowns, the sudden firings, the rushed upgrades that never made sense. It wasn't just one mistake. It was a pattern, a cover-up. And now, the only one brave, or stubborn enough to dig through the ashes, was a teenage girl in a dusty jacket. Upstairs, the boss backed away from the glass instinctively. For the first time, his confidence cracked, because he knew what was coming. This wasn't about a dare anymore. This wasn't a challenge or a joke. This was evidence, and he was cornered. He reached for the intercom button, but his hand hovered. What could he say? What lie could he possibly spin now that she had the proof in her hand? And then, she walked, slowly, calmly, purposefully, right past the stunned workers, past the floor supervisor, up the metal stairs one step at a time. Like gravity didn't apply to her anymore. The copper valve still swinging in her hand. Her father's name carved into her silence. And as she reached the top step, only one thought filled her mind. You made him a villain. Now I'll make you a memory. She reached the glass door leading to the boss's office and paused. Her heart wasn't racing, not yet, because this wasn't about fear anymore. It was about justice. She pushed it open slowly, the heavy hinges groaning like the weight of years about to be lifted. Inside, the boss looked up from his desk, eyes narrowing. "So," he said, voice dripping with fake calm, "you've finally decided to play detective." She stepped inside, holding the copper valve like a loaded gun. "This part," she said quietly, "was never supposed to fail accidentally. It was planted on purpose." The room went colder. His fingers tightened on the edge of the desk. "You think you can prove that?" he sneered. "I don't need to prove it to you," she said, voice steady. "I'm here to fix it. And when I do, the whole factory will know who really broke this engine and who tried to break my family." He laughed, but it was hollow, cracked. "You don't understand how this world works," he spat. "Power isn't about truth. It's about control." She smiled, a small, sharp twist of her lips. "Maybe, but power also fears exposure. And that's exactly what I'm here to bring." The boss's eyes darkened. "You're playing a dangerous game." "I'm not playing," she said. "I'm winning." She left the office without a word, but her mind was racing faster than the engines around her. If the boss was the problem, then she needed allies. People who still remembered her father, not as a failure, but as a legend. She found one in old Miguel, the grizzled welder who worked night shifts, always with a cigarette dangling from his lips and stories that ran deeper than the factory walls. Miguel didn't hesitate. "You want proof," he said, wiping soot from his hands. "I've got files." Hidden. The boss made sure no one else could see him. Together, they snuck down to a dusty storage room where the factory's old logs and blueprints were piled like forgotten secrets. Miguel pulled out a battered folder, cracked it open, and handed her faded photographs, maintenance reports, and coded messages. The handwriting was unmistakable. Her father's. "See that?" Miguel pointed at a note scrawled in the margin, "Warning, part rigged. Don't trust the replacements." Her heart pounded. This wasn't just sabotage, it was a conspiracy. And now she had the first pieces of the puzzle. But just as she folded the papers carefully, footsteps echoed nearby. She froze. The boss's shadow loomed in the hallway. She had to move fast. She pressed herself flat against the cold, rusted wall, clutching the folder tight like it was her last lifeline. The boss's footsteps grew louder, slow and deliberate, like a predator savoring the hunt. Her breath caught. Every second felt stretched, every heartbeat thunderous. Then, a sudden shout from the far end of the hallway, Miguel's voice. "Hey, over here." The boss paused, then turned sharply. Without thinking, she sprinted toward the emergency exit, heart pounding like a drum in a war march. Bursting into the fresh air, she gulped the cold night in free, but barely. Miguel was right behind her, coughing from the dust and grit. "We're not safe yet," he wheezed. "But now, you've got what you need." She nodded, eyes burning with fire. But a shadow lingered in her mind. Who else was watching? Who else had been silent, waiting to betray? This fight wasn't just with the boss. It was with everyone who had stayed quiet for too long. And trust? That was about to become her most dangerous gamble. Back in the dim glow of a forgotten warehouse, she spread the stolen files across the cracked wooden table. Miguel leaned in, eyes flickering with both pride and fear. "Your father, he wasn't just a mechanic," Miguel said quietly. "He was the heart of this place. He knew things the boss wanted buried." She traced her finger over a blueprint, a plan that showed more than just engines. It hinted at money, politics, and deals whispered behind closed doors. "This factory, it's a machine built on lies," she murmured. Miguel nodded. "And some of the workers? They're scared. But there's a few who remember the truth." Her mind raced. If she could find those people real allies, they could start to turn the tide. But even as hope flickered, a cold voice interrupted the silence. "Hope is dangerous." She turned sharply. Standing in the shadows was Rosa, her childhood friend, now the boss's right hand. Rosa's smile was sharp, eyes unreadable. "I've been watching you," she said. "Don't think I'm on your side." The warning hung heavy in the air. Betrayal wasn't just possible, it was coming. Her eyes locked with Rosa's, cold and sharp like winter steel. "Watching me isn't enough," she said, voice steady but ice cold. "If you want to stop me, you better try harder." Rosa chuckled, but there was no warmth, just the sting of a warning. "You think you can take down the boss? You're a pawn in a game much bigger than you." That hit harder than any blow. But she clenched her fists. "I'm no pawn." As Rosa melted back into the shadows, a plan sparked in her mind, one risky enough to shake the factory to its core. She needed proof. Hard evidence. And more than that, she needed the workers on her side. Because the real power wasn't in the boardroom. It was in the hands that kept these engines running every single day. The question was, could she unite them before the boss crushed her? Or would the shadows swallow her whole? She moved fast, hitting the shadows of the factory floor where whispers traveled faster than engines. One by one, she pulled aside those still loyal to her father's name. Faces hardened by years of silence, eyes tired but flickering with something new, hope. "We can't let the boss keep breaking us," she told them, voice low but fierce. "He's not just wrecking engines, he's breaking lives." A murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. But fear was still thick in the air. They knew the boss's reach ran deep, and crossing him meant risking everything. Still, the promise of change sparked something too strong to ignore. Together, they began to plan quiet meetings in forgotten corners, coded messages slipped between shifts. The rebellion was taking shape. But in the back of her mind, a chill warning echoed. The boss wasn't going to sit still. And the next move? It could be the last. The factory floor buzzed like always, but something was different, an electric tension pulsing beneath the noise. Word had reached the boss. And he wasn't taking the threat lightly. That very night, under flickering lights, a message was sent, silent but clear. A shipment of accidents began appearing, tools broken, schedules mysteriously shifted, whispers of layoffs floated in the air like poison. Workers started disappearing from shifts, afraid of what would happen if they stayed too long. She saw it all, the fear, the hesitation, the weight of the boss's grip tightening. But giving up? Not an option. If the boss thought threats would silence her, he was about to learn how loud a whisper could roar. The fight wasn't just for engines anymore. It was for survival. And now, the battle lines were drawn in steel and sweat. Just when she thought the lines were clear, a whispered conversation caught her off guard. Miguel, her closest ally, the one who'd promised to stand by her no matter what. But his words? Cold, calculated. "I'm sorry," he said, voice barely a whisper, "but the boss made me an offer I can't refuse." Her heart slammed into her ribs, betrayal sharper than any knife. Everything they'd built, the plans they'd made, it was all crumbling. She looked at him, eyes blazing, hurt and fury mixing in a storm. "How could you?" Miguel's face twisted, torn between loyalty and survival. "I'm trying to keep us alive." But survival came at a price. And the price was trust. With Miguel's silence, the boss's power grew. And now she had to decide who was truly on her side. The factory felt colder than ever, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She stood before the gathered workers, a fire blazing in her eyes. "No more silence," she said, voice steady, "no more fear." The betrayal had hurt, but it hadn't broken her. With every breath, she promised one thing: freedom. Freedom from the boss's grip. Freedom for everyone who had toiled in shadows for too long. Plans were whispered, signals given. The final strike was ready. But as the first engine roared to life that morning, she knew. This wasn't just about fixing broken machines anymore. This was about breaking chains. And either they rose together, or they fell apart. Engines thundered louder than ever, shaking the factory to its core. The boss's empire was crumbling piece by piece. Her voice echoed through the chaos, a beacon of change. The workers stood tall, united by more than just oil and sweat. They were family. Miguel's betrayal stung, but in that pain, a new strength was forged. The impossible engine had been fixed, not just in metal, but in spirit. And as the sun rose over the factory's battered walls, a new day dawned. One where she wasn't just the mechanic's daughter. She was the leader who dared to challenge the impossible. True strength isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about standing up when everyone else is silent, turning betrayal into fuel, and leading with courage when the odds say you should quit.